So one of the first things I've discovered about the US is I love basements. There we go, that's up to the main house. And this space is all unoccupied. So we have this room down here, pretty decent size room. You probably can't get an idea of the scale, but that's, you know, double bed width plus probably, I don't know, it's 15 foot, 15 foot by 15 foot. Completely empty room with some storage there as well. And as you can see, this is no lights on in this room. It's 5 o'clock in the afternoon. It's quite nicely lit with that window. It's actually got 2 windows coming in. It's sunken into the side of the hill, so that one is one of those sort of windows that looks up through a vent, but this one here is out onto the open where my garage is next door. So we've got a good opportunity for that as a gaming room, although I know my better half has ideas for that to be another spare bedroom for the kids. And then down here we've got, again, more storage and more living space that we don't need. So we've got plenty of space upstairs, but we've got a very big living room down here as well. And even just that space on the end must be 20 foot wide and about 15 foot deep there at the end of the sofa. And I can always shove this sofa up. So plenty of opportunities down here for gaming, but actually now the family have gone home, I've started upstairs. So here we are in the dining room, and you can see I don't have my 28mm collection, so the visual spectacle isn't quite going to be the same. But we've set out, or I've set out my first game. This is the Battle of Hegelberg, which some of you have probably seen me play before in 28mm. We've now got a chance to play this in 15mm. Now, as I recall, this is a bunch of second line French troops that were going up to support the assault in 1813 towards Berlin, and they were intercepted by a freshly raised force of Landwehr and actually defeated. So what we've got here is a bunch of, as I say, second line French and garrison troops, and we've also got a couple of battalions of Saxons down there, and a small provisional cavalry brigade with provisional dragoons and a hussar regiment in it. We've got 2 regular artillery batteries and 1 brigade there of 6 battalions, 4 second rate and 2 conscript, and a brigade here of 6 battalions, 1 light fighting as line, and 5 battalions as second rate. Alright, let's come back with looking at the Prussian forces. We've got, we're fighting as 5 brigades on table today. So we've got a small brigade here of 3 Landwehr battalions. They'll be fighting as conscripts, but with highly motivated the rule adjustment, so I'll need to see how that works in General Army. Then we've got 6 more battalions in a second bigger brigade. We've got a brigade of 3 battalions of reservists with an attached Landwehr cavalry regiment. We've got a cavalry brigade of Landwehr cavalry in its own right. We've got a Russian 12-pounder, I think it's a heavy battery, for artillery support, and a very small brigade of 2 more battalions of Landwehr. And we also have some Cossacks that can come in on the flanks of the French troops later in the game. Right, let's see how this plays out. But again, more great lighting in here. We've got the sun coming around in the afternoon in this room. And we've got some lights brilliantly positioned just above the table as well. So 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and this is really well lit. So let's see how the game plays out. So we're going to play for initiative, and even having played, what, I don't know, 50, 100 games of General Army, I realise I still get the rules wrong. So I did just, because it's such a long time since I played, reread the rules for initiative. And you do roll 2d6, and the higher goes first, and on ties, the player who started the previous turn gets to have the initiative. What I had completely neglected was you deduct 1 for each hesitant and faltering brigade. So obviously in the first turn there aren't any of those, but something for us to remember in the rest of the game. Right, Blues obviously are French. Prussians get a 10, and they are attacking after all. So let's see what they do as they kick into. We had 2 ADCs. We allocated them to the 2 brigades on the left flank. We're going for a left flank assault. That's where we've got the majority of our infantry. All brigades are actually active. Those 2 had the rerolls but didn't need them. For the French, both their infantry brigades are active. We used our 2 ADCs to put artillery assault on the battery, which went off, but unfortunately our cavalry reserve went hesitant. Okay, Prussians to move first. They'll kick off with. So the Prussian plan is to try and pin the French left flank, right as you look at it here, by moving their cavalry brigade forward, supported by that small Landwehr regiment to stop them redeploying any of those troops, and to go in with a major assault with 9 battalions of Landwehr against this French right flank. At the moment they're holding on to their reservists as a reserve for this assault. Alright, that's movement done. Let's see how the French respond. Now for artillery, firstly the Russian heavy 12-pounder battery there is going to open fire against this infantry target. It is at long range. Let's see how they do. Not a bad first roll for the game. So they roll a 9, that is 1 casualty and a discipline test on these French conscripts. They haven't sort of reserve second line, so they will count as reservists. Reservists. So until they've taken 4 casualties, they count as regulars. All right, let's do their discipline test and mark up the casualties. We didn't get any bounce through either, so that unit behind hasn't taken any casualties. Let's take the discipline test. We roll an 8. So as we rolled more than a 7, or a 7 or higher, then we remain formed, so no impact. All right, the French will return fire. Their guns here will open fire at that Prussian battalion, the closest one they can see. The red dice are the artillery dice from the assault fire. So we've rolled a 7 on the artillery table. So a 7 at long range is half a casualty. So we would round that up on a 4, 5 or 6. No, it doesn't round up. And the 4 on the red dice is also a casualty from the artillery assault fire. So 1 casualty on that attacking Prussian battalion, but no discipline test. We'll mark that up in a second. And then finally, this gun will open fire. 40 centimetre range it was, which is still at long range, going against the Prussian Landwehr cavalry. And they roll a 5. That won't be anything. So that's it for firing. I guess the skirmish is out of range. I will just. So there was a brief exchange of fire. I'm not familiar with my 15 millimeter ranges, so it's actually a 20 centimeter. Can't remember, 15 centimeter. Might even be 12 centimeter range for skirmishes. Anyway, these 2 guys were both within range, so they exchanged skirmish fire at one another. Both caused a casualty. All right, that's it for turn 1. Let's see how we do as we move into turn 2. Right, for turn 2, the Prussians retained initiative, but they still only got 2 ADCs, despite having 5 or 6 brigades on table, so more bad rolling for their ADC allocations. They put re-rolls on both these brigades. Again, they didn't need them. The reserve has gone hesitant, but the 2 brigades on the left are also active. For the French, all brigades are active. They also had 2 ADCs, so they put artillery assault on this battery this turn, which also went off. So no hesitant brigades for the French. But again, Prussians to move first. Not prematurely, but very traditional for me. The Prussians are just launching an assault here. So the Prussian Landwehr cavalry weren't able to control themselves and gone crashing into these French line. They're supported by that Landwehr brigade, which is hurrying up to their flank. Over on the far left, which was meant to be the assault that went in first, those Landwehr are still moving forward. The skirmisher screens have moved up, and we're opening fire on the French lines. So first thing will be charge resolution to do down here, and we've got some defensive fire from this artillery battery, and then from both of these line infantry battalions. Let's see. Right, let's fire this artillery first against this Landwehr cavalry. Luckily for the French, they were on artillery assault, so they get to add their artillery dice to this. So pretty good roll, a 9 at close range does 3 casualties in a discipline test, and they get a 4th casualty from the artillery dice. So that'll be a discipline test on the Landwehr cavalry. They count as recruits, but with the Landwehr motivation, which means on a 4, 5 or 6 they can count as veterans for morale. But as they've taken 4 casualties, they're no longer fresh, so they don't get that opportunity, so they will be testing as recruits. So let's see what their discipline test is. So recruits, they are in column, so there's no modifier but -1 for 4 casualties. So again, they need a 7 or more to stay on track. They roll a 10, so they will continue with their charge. All right, now let's do the defensive VAR from the French infantry. Full-heartedly, the French infantry have decided to fire rather than try and form square. They're doing this because certainly this battalion on the right has got both flanks supported and its rear supported, and these are only recruit cavalry, so we reckon we might be able to throw them off, and there's a risk we'll simply go disordered if we fail our leadership test. Alright, so volley against the right hand battalion, we roll a 5, so that is a standard volley because they haven't taken any casualties in their second rates. So there's 1 more casualty against the charging cavalry, so they have taken 5. Alright, the other battalion will open fire, and they roll a double 1. That's terrible, that will be nothing. They may be in trouble. Alright, let's do the charges. Let's do these 2 charges. Prussians will be red, French will be blue. For the charge on the right, the French get a net +1 adjustment because of the massive casualties caused by the artillery battery when they charged in. For the Prussian lancers on the French left, they get a +3 bonus because the defending fire whiffed. Alright, doing the right hand one first. The French get a 7, the Prussians get a 5, the French goes up to an 8, so the French have won by 3. So cavalry versus infantry at -3, the cavalry retire and they take an extra casualty, and the French stand. For the second attack going in against the left-hand battalion, Prussians get a +3 modifier. So Prussians do well here. They've rolled an 11, 12, 13, 14 plays 8, so they have won by 6. That's going to be really good. Cavalry versus infantry, victory. They take 1 casualty, but the defenders are ridden down and they get the option to charge on. The Prussian lancers only rolled a 9, so they didn't get to have to charge on too far, but from here, crashing into the infantry, there, charging on 9, they can wheel and hit that unit. They will be hitting it in the front, so they'll get no modifiers for that, no defensive fire modifiers. So again, this should be a good result for the Prussian. Modifiers as in the previous attack, the Prussians are at +3. Alright, so the Prussians roll an 8, the French roll a 6. Not quite the decisive result, but 8 becomes 11, so they have won by 5. The cavalry will melee with Elan, and the defenders will melee unformed. Clearly, the answer is don't stay in line, even when charged by Prussian Landwehr. No other firing, we'll do our artillery fire. I'll do that on camera and then do the skirmishers offline. So first, again, the Russian heavy artillery battery is going to open fire against the same target. It rolls a 6, so at long range, a 6 is half a casualty. Let's see if that converts. It does. It takes them up to 2 casualties. All right, the French left-hand battery has already fired its defensive fire when the Russian cavalry charged in, so the other battery here will open fire going against the same target through that skirmish screen. The skirmishers are too far away and they were firing ball shot anyway. So 8 at long range is 1 more casualty on the French. So we will mark that up, sorry, on the Prussians. So they go up to 2 casualties, and I'll be back after the skirmisher fire. Okay, so French are in trouble here. They're unformed and they're going against lancers that are formed against infantry, which gives the Prussians plenty of advantages. We need to roll 4s or more for casualties. French cause 2, and the Prussians cause 6. So the Prussians have won by 4. that will not be good for that French. We are at the end of turn 2, so it's looking a bit dicey for the French on this left flank. That very bold charge by the Prussian Landwehr resulted in this Landwehr regiment getting badly mauled by the artillery fire of this French brigade. But the other Landwehr regiment, shielded as it was by its colleagues, crashed into the French and has destroyed 2 battalions. So this brigade is faltering but not yet broken. Alright, and over here the exchange of skirmisher fire on this flank didn't do very much. A couple of casualties caused on one of the French battalions, but the French really need to get their cavalry into action and respond to this Prussian threat. Alright, let's see what happens as we move into turn. Great result for the Prussians. Both the brigades on the Prussian left went hesitant. That was despite having 3 ADCs, which they put infantry assault on the 6th Battalion brigade and given themselves a re-roll, but they rolled a 2 and then a 1, and then the other brigade also rolled a 2, so those are both hesitant. The reserve, it was hesitant last turn, it's active this turn, as are the 2 attacking Prussian brigades, so perhaps it's going with the flow of the game. For the French, both their brigades on the right are active, and they're giving themselves 2 ADCs, so they get a re-roll for their falter test. So let's see how they do as a faltering brigade. Let's roll the first of these dice. They roll a 5. I think that is obey orders. It is indeed. So they're no longer faltering and they can take action as normal. Alright, so the Prussians with 2 hesitant brigades will be on -2 on this die roll. Will they lose initiative for the first time this turn? Well, they go from a 9 to a 7. The French are already on a 7. But the Prussians had initiative last turn, therefore they keep it, so they do get the option of moving. There are problems with initiative on the left flank. The Prussians decided to continue going for it, especially with the gift of initiative again this turn, so they've charged the French artillery in the rear and have also charged this battalion with 2 battalions of Landwehr. Alright, so we'll get some defensive fire from this left Highland battalion first, and then we'll move on to charge results. Defensive fire. We roll a 7. Not brilliant, but not too bad. So for a standard volley, a 7 is 2 casualties. We have to put the majority on the lead attacking unit. You can't have both on 1, so both those casualties go on the attacking unit. There's obviously no defensive fire from being hit in the rear by the artillery. Let's see what the charge results are. Got the rules right. I think the attacker gets to choose who's going to attack first. So we're going to do the charge first from the cavalry. Because we have the opportunity here of potentially getting a broken brigade, which will help the infantry charge subsequently. So let's do the cavalry first, as they go into the rear of this French artillery. We get that the Lancers get a +7 modifier against the artillery, and yeah, they will wipe the artillery out, and they may charge on. They may charge on 4d6, which is a massive 10-20 centimetres. So they wipe out the guns. This brigade will be faltering and they charge straight into the flank of this battalion. They take another casualty, however, for having ridden down another unit. So we've now got a further round of combat to do. Again, no defensive fire and a flank attack here. Right, so this is a +4 modifier. They get +4 flank, they get +1 for lances, -1 for now having taken 4 casualties. So the Prussians roll an 8, so this is not such a conclusive victory. So they win by 2. Chargers 1 by 1 to 2. Cavalry versus infantry. Cavalry will melee with Elan, and those infantry go unformed, and the charge on stops. Right. So for the Prussians, we really wanted to break a second unit because that would have broken the brigade, but it hasn't. The brigade is simply faltering. So we now do the charge results as these 2 battalions, including a support, go in against this battalion. So the French rolled a 5 for their defensive fire, which caused 1 more casualty on the Prussians, but simply takes them up to 4, and there's no modifier in the charge result. The Prussians get a reroll because they've got a support and are simply on a +1 because the French are in a faltering brigade. So the French roll an 11, the Prussians roll an 8. They will re-roll. That actually makes it worse, so the Prussians have actually lost by 3. infantry versus infantry, so the infantry will retire with 1 casualty. So this part of the Prussian attack is thrown. We'll now do some normal movement for the Prussians, and for the French a chance to redeploy some of their lines and try and face off this flanking attack. The only remaining units that were not hesitant are the Prussian Reserve, which has now moved up to join the pressure on the left. For the French, the light cavalry brigade has swung to its left to face off the charge, but I think the damage may have been done by the Prussians. The French have also started to move a flanking force up towards the woods. Alright, let's do some artillery. We've got some long-range artillery far from the Russians. They are now firing at these French squares, so a more attractive target. And let's see how they do. So we get 2 artillery dice as we fire into the square. By a good result, a 9 and 2 bonus casualties. So at long range, a 9 does 1 casualty and a discipline test. So that's 3, and actually it goes up to 5 because of the artillery dice score of a 6 and a 5. So a discipline test at -1. These are now recruits, so they are not in column. So for a discipline test, what's the modifiers for a discipline test? Recruit, then they don't suffer a penalty if they're in column or square. So a straight test, but at -1 for the casualties they've taken. Wow, they roll a 3, that goes down to a 2, and they are gone. They retreat and lose 1d3 casualties, and I think they'll probably retreat off the table. They take a further 2 casualties, which takes them up to 7. And let's see how far they go. So the French gun on wheels, it was a -1, we rolled a 10, that goes down to a 9, that caused 1 more casualty. -2 actually goes down to an 8, that caused 1 more casualty on this Landwehr brigade, but no further damage. Alright, final action of the turn will be hand-to-hand combat as we go into the flank of this French line. It doesn't look good for the French, only 3 dice because they've been hit in the flank and are unformed. They cause no casualties, and the cavalry cause 5 casualties. That will cause, I'm sure, the units disperse and the Lancers take the ground. Right, so we have got a demoralised brigade here. There's only 3 battalions left of a 7 unit formation, and it is faltering because of the number of units that were destroyed this turn. Any demoralised brigade that falter will disperse. So this whole French brigade now flees the table. At this point, I think the French are going to retire. It feels the only sensible thing to do, although they can probably drive off, or almost certainly drive off, this Lancers with a concerted charge by the Dragoons and their Hussars. They've only got 6 battalions left. They're under pressure from our strong Prussian skirmish screen, and we've got 9, 10, 11, 12 battalions looming up against these French 6 battalions, 2 of which are conscripts. And the Prussians will be able to probably fend off any counterattack by the Hussars for long enough for these attacks to go in, because the Prussians still have 2 other viable units of cavalry, and they've still got to chew through this one. So let's call it there. The French have lost half their army. They will use the cavalry to screen their withdrawal and pull back with this brigade, and the Prussians, as with history, have won the game. God, it's a long time, as you guys probably know, since I played General Brigade. It's like 4 months now. I really enjoyed this game. It's not bad playing with 15mm. I love the spectacle of the 28s and the look at the figures. I'm never going to give that up, but they just weren't practical to bring out here, and the 15mm travelled over in a few little plastic boxes, and they survived air freighting. So I've still got a bit more stuff to come out. There should have been a village on this table, which might have helped the French a bit, as they had the chance to occupy that village. But that scenery is not yet packed, so that'll be coming in with the sea freight in due course. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this game. A return to General Brigade. I'm probably not going to get up to doing 1 a week like I used to. It's been, to be honest, a bit of a pressure off not having to record vast numbers of videos that me and Charlie were doing. And Charlie's not out here yet, as I mentioned earlier, so I don't have my normal companion, and I'm sure you'll get somewhat bored of me talking to myself. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you all again soon. Cheers, everyone.